Stellenbosch Credo and CIFAL Istanbul at Bahçeşehir University. So we are very excited actually to be, talking more on sustainability. So, well, this is gonna be recorded for internal purposes. Apologies for not, announcing it earlier. We'd like to record the sessions for the upcoming, sessions of the series. Well, why we are here tonight? Because it's been a long collaboration, between my colleagues here on different occasions with Ursula van Beek from Stellenbosch University Credo, Mustafa Aydın Hocam from Uluslararası İlişkiler Konseyi, from Global Academy Panorama. And so the purpose of these series, why we launch, is actually because we decided to do something also on sustainability, as it is it's like a problem for everybody at every age in different parts of the world. And that was like the story behind. And we are very glad that from different parts of the world also there are participants. So basically, we will have a more, wider outreach. So there are students, there are colleagues, and this is also a great thing to be here at this hour. So, I am the director of CIFAL Istanbul, which is an, center of United Nations Institute for Training and Research. And so we work primarily on sustainable development goals. We plan a lot of programs, webinars, learning events, and so forth and so on. So it's great to be a partner to this series. And we have Ursula van Beek. I'd like to give Ursula the floor for a brief introduction of Credo and why you are here as a partner to this event, and then Mustafa Hocam. And then I would like to introduce Ibrahim Hoca, the speaker of tonight, an expert on ESGs. And so this is the plan. And I would kindly ask all the participants mute themselves. There will be a Q&A session at the very end, and we will start. If you have any questions or comments in the meantime, you'll be able to write also the chat box. So Ursula, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. It's great to see you again. And please, yes, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I just want to warn you that we have power shedding here, which is a daily occurrence in South Africa. And my computer told me that my connection is unstable. So I might just disappear. So don't worry about me if I do. Okay. For the time being, I'm still here. So as Ebru said, Credo is proud to be partner in this worthwhile endeavor. We have not actually ever worked on sustainable issues at all. But Credo, let me just give you a little bit of background to Credo. It's a new institution which has only been created last year, but we are fortunate to be able to build on a 25-year history of researchers of various countries which have come together to study democracy from the time when democracy was supposed to take the world by storm, when history was supposed to have ended, and when we were supposed to live as humanity as big, happy family ever since. We started comparing two countries in transition, which was South Africa and Poland, because the situation, even though they were so dramatically different in every respect, there were similarities in the process of transition to democracy. And that was breaking a certain mold at the time, because in the mid-90s, comparisons have been made, but they were usually restricted to the regional areas in which these democracies were actually located. So we broke that mold. And since that worked well, and there was quite a lot of applause for it, we have then extended our sample to include every region in the world. And this is how Turkey, Chile, and South Korea came into play. These 5 younger democracies were at the time the leaders in their respective regions. And we compared them with Germany and Sweden, which we took as our models of well-run, established democracies. Well, sadly, that enthusiasm and the great joy of all the repressive regimes falling down has been short-lived. And as we know, for the last several years, the whole process started to unravel to the point where we now have mounts of problems. And most of these problems are being shared by the entire world. We already mentioned the climate change, but we have polarization, we have xenophobia, we have radical right parties emerging in various countries. We have inequality of unknown proportions, we have migrations and so on. So we actually do know what the problems are, but it is our belief that the identification of problems is but the first step towards solutions. This is why Credo has moved into a different direction. And the idea now is not so much to assess the quality of democracy or its shortcomings in various respects, especially in a comparative perspective, but to actually look for root causes of the problems, not only in the various countries, but generally. And so our research agenda has moved in the direction that allows us to join hands with initiatives such as yours, because it is my personal strong belief that problems that we are now facing cannot be solved by politicians alone. In fact, they're part of the problem. So the only way in which we can start to make a little bit of a difference is to know exactly what went wrong, why it went wrong, and is there a way of fixing it. So our research is focused on three different areas, which happen to coincide with the three pillars of the ESGs. First of all, we are trying to understand why, and then Yilmaz can say something on that subject, why democracy, what kinds of democracy are there, how people see it, to what extent people feel disappointed with living under democratic dispensations and finding that their lives have not actually improved, which is clearly one of the reasons why there is a rise of various negativity in the various countries. The other area of our interest is to compare the global south and the global north, because there's a great deal of research that has been going on in the north for decades that in Africa, for example, has not been even looked at. One of these topics that we would like to pursue is the implication of digitalization on the political process, and especially weaponization of digitalization, which has been very well, as I understand, researched in the northern countries. And within that context, we want to look at Africa more specifically, but also to examine the international situation in that perspective, South-North, to see how international organizations cooperate with local, regional organizations such as the African Union and so forth. So in brief, I just basically feel that academics need to reach out. We cannot do research for research's sake anymore. We must do research for action, and we must join hands in that endeavor, not just with other institutions in the academic world, but also with social networks, with political bodies, advisory bodies, and so forth. So again, thank you for inviting Credo to this network. And I hope that, you know, like the song from the 1980s went, do you remember? To make a little bit, how did the song go? Make it a bit of a difference. I can't remember the song, but it was something about making the world a little better. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ursula. And I hope you will stay, even though your connection will be like poor. We want to be here, you know, until the end. So thank you very much. This is very important. Of course, when we talk about sustainability, we tend to think that it's only about the climate or, you know, It's not. So it actually basically cuts across the entire aspects of lives, you know, so that's why, of course, democracy is a very important part of all the sustainability related issues, because we start from hunger, poverty, and we end up in international, you know, local, individual collaboration with SDG 17. So, and there will be more sessions that will be talking on different aspects of sustainability for sure. So, and said that, Mustafa Hocam, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ebru. I'm not going to take much, as I am not an academically working on the sustainability issues, but I just checked before I came here. I have been member of this Sustainable Development Solutions Network since 2016, actually. And I was one of the first university presidents in Turkey to take my university to be member of that network. So I always valued this sustainability and efforts for it in all aspects, but I'm here to learn as much as to follow the discussions. And the driving force, of course, behind this initiative has been and will be definitely Ebru and Ursula, who we have to take a lot. I'm really excited to be partnering with Credo and CIFAL, both Stellenbosch University and Bahçeşehir University. To say a few words, International Relations Council of Turkey is an association of academics in Turkey, has been around since 2004. And recently we added Global Academy as a research institute, and have been trying to expand our focus from international relations to cover other areas. So this sustainability and discussion on this comes very timely for us. And Panorama, Ebru is here. We were together in establishing Panorama. It is an online platform dedicated to reach wider public with considered analysis of everything that relates to human condition. And that, of course, includes sustainability problems, and increasingly so. So in that sense, I'm very happy to be partnering on behalf of International Relations Council of Turkey and Global Academy, partnering with Credo and also CIFAL. And thank you for all your efforts, Ebru and Ursula. And it's nice to finally meeting you, Ursula, face to face, at least on Zoom here.
Thank you, Hocam. And also,
thank you.
Well, it's a great pleasure.
Same here. It's not
excellent.
It's not really face to face, you know. It's screen to screen, but
screen to screen.
Better than nothing.
Better than nothing. I'll be very happy to come to Stellenbosch. We had a project running there a couple of years ago, and it was good memories. Let me put it that way.
So you must absolutely organize another project.
Definitely, we should do that.
And I also take this as an invitation for our side, right? Yılmaz Hocam is here, so
invitation to partner further.
Okay, and to move to Stellenbosch. All right. Well, thank you very much. I mean, this was, I think, a very warm and instructive welcoming session. So I would like to give the floor now to Ibrahim Hocam. Well, thank you very much, Hocam. Very briefly, let me introduce İbrahim Ünalmış, Professor İbrahim Ünalmış, who is actually who has recently joined Bahçeşehir University as the Bahçeşehir University Finance Research Center Director, and also the colleague and economics department here. So he kindly accepted to talk on ESG. So which we will be definitely learning a lot, because ESG is actually a new route in all the sustainability related discussions, projects, and so forth and so on. So that will be more in the upcoming days, months on ESGs. So I think it's a very timely session that we have here. Together with Ibrahim Hoca. So Ibrahim Hoca, as I said, has recently joined Bahçeşehir University, and he has a very long career basically in Central Bank of Turkey. And his main fields of research and studies include monetary related issues, banking and financial related issues. So these are slightly distant to political scientists or international relations people. But I recently attended a talk that is delivered by Ibrahim last week, and that was extremely helpful for us as a political scientist. So I'm very happy actually to have you here, Hocam. I would like to give you like half an hour, if it is okay for you, and then we'll get the Q&A session at the very end. So welcome again, and thank you very much for being with us here.
Thank you very much, Hocam, for inviting me here, and thank you very much for this very nice introduction. As you said, I'm a finance guy mainly. But in the last couple of years, I realized that I have to extend my research area because of these, the discussions on the sustainability issues. So recently I am thinking about how I can help. So how we can design the finance part, so we can positively contribute to the limiting the climate change, for example. And at the same time, I am mainly thinking about government policies, how we can promote the actions of finance part, the banks and the corporates, the companies, and the people as well, so that people first at the beginning should be more aware of the climate change and other sustainability issues of the world, and then we can think about solving the problems together. So today I will cover the main problems, as Ursula has mentioned about the problems we have. So I will touch some of those problems from the sustainability perspective. And at the same time, I will give some couple of indicators about where we are on the climate change and what are the actions we have taken as a global countries. And then I will talk about more on the corporate issues, how we can internalize those knowledge and policies in the companies. And at the same time, I will actually talk about how we can represent the approach of a company as a numerical issue, like scores, so how we can use it. And at the end of my talk, obviously, I will be happy to take your questions, and I will try to answer those of your questions. Yes, if we go back to the discussion of the climate change, so still there a big debate is going on. In the 5 years before, maybe you remember the President Trump in the US, actually, he was saying that there was no global warming. Still there were people, they are claiming that there is no global warming. From my point of view, it is something like arguing that the world is flat. When you look at the indicators, the global warming is the very clear fact anymore. And as an indicator, one of the indicators actually is the carbon dioxide emissions. So when we look at the historical carbon dioxide emission, this is more than 1,000 years of carbon dioxide emission in the atmosphere of our planet. So it has been fluctuating, as you see. It has been fluctuating, but especially in the last 100 years, the level we have reached is unbelievable, and we haven't seen such kind of levels in the last 1,000 years. So, definitely there is something going on, and definitely we have to do something. And when we look at the sectors that are responsible, mainly responsible from these carbon dioxide emissions, the greenhouse effects, the electricity and heat production, as you see, actually responsible for 25% of these carbon emissions. And all of us actually use this facility in our daily life. Agriculture, forestry, and other land use actually very similar to the electricity. And the next one is industry. Especially in the last 30 years, when China actually grows and grows economically, and when the production plants of industrial economies like US and Europe, some of the countries in Europe and US actually they carried their production plants to the China. And why? Because the production is cheaper in China. At the same time, the regulations, environmental regulations, are weak as well. So the contribution of the industry to the carbon emission has also increased because of this transformation. And the transportation, actually, when the people actually get rich, the contribution of the transportation has increased as well in the last 20 to 30 years. And these are some numbers for the research. Actually, the research we have seen in the literature on the global warming and greenhouse effects, and especially on the extreme weather conditions and their attribution studies. So as you see, the numbers are increasing in the last in 2020. It is because of these statistics actually was gathered in 2022, mid 2022. That is why the number is relatively low. But when we look at the trend, definitely the extreme weather conditions have been increasing in the world, and from regions to regions, these extreme conditions can change. Even in Turkey, for example, when we look at the extreme weather conditions, in the northern part, we started to see more frequent floods in the northern part of the Turkey, and in southern part, we started to see hot weather during the summer, and the fires, very wild fires at the southern part of the Turkey. And now we are in a very severe drought period as well. Maybe the middle part actually have seen a snow nowadays, but in Istanbul, the amount of water in the dams actually reached very low levels. So we don't know what's going to happen this summer in the Marmara region. So if it goes like this, there will be the water shortages, and we will see that there will be no water on our taps during the summer. So these are all frightening developments that we are already actually living. So this is the climate part, and maybe the more obvious part. We see those kind of sustainability discussions, especially on climate. But there are some other sustainability issues that we do not hear much on the news, on the discussions, but they are already there, and they are like a bomb, and these kind of issues are clicking, tick, tick, tick, and these are very important issues, but we don't discuss much. One of them is the global income inequality. If you compare the income per head for a person for many countries in the last 50 years, definitely we get rich in the last 50 years. In Turkey, in other emerging countries, in developed countries, in developing countries, the income per head has increased significantly. So we can spend more, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the income equality is actually we are in a better position of income inequality when we compare it with the 100 years before. So this actually, this graph actually comes from the World Inequality Report of 2022. So it clearly shows that the income share of the bottom 50%, actually has declined compared with the last 100 years before. So we are earning maybe more money, but the share of the bottom 50 actually has declined compared with the 100 years before. The middle class is relatively in a better position when you compare with 100 years before, but still their share is around 35% in the last 100 years, but it didn't change much. Still there are some very rich people in the world, and they get about 50% of the income, right? For the top 10% of the rich people get the 50% of the income that we create in the world. So in a short sentence, the poor is really, again, the poor is still poor, the rich is still rich. You know, the situation for the poor part is getting worse as well. So this is not sustainable. When you talk with the development economics guys, and when you talk with the sociologists, so this trend is not sustainable. You know, we should actually create create new policies to actually transfer more resources for this group as well, because we are in another dimension is that we are in a very delicate situation. The world economy is in a threshold point. We are moving from a state to a digital world, and we don't know much about what's going to happen in this digital world. Some people can actually lose their jobs. Maybe the automation of some of the works actually will lead to higher unemployment rates, and these bottom part, the bottom 50, actually will be mostly affected with this digitalization and the change of the world economy. So what I am trying to say is that this is one of the area that we have to actually look at as a sustainability issue as well. So I will show in the corporate part and I will show that the new ESG approach is trying to find a solution, at least for these bottom part at the corporate level, not at the national level, but at the corporate level. Another issue maybe we can talk about is the gender inequality. I have found data on the World Economic Forum Global Gender Gap Report of the last year again. The data starts at 2006 and ends at 2022. Sorry, the headline says 2020, but the data goes to 2022. It's a very new report. The developments here is a bit more better than the income equality. There's a hope here, and especially some of the regions do much better than the other part. Europe, for example, the North America, they do much better on gender inequality side. So in here, this is an index. I haven't explained it. In here, this is an index. When you close to 1, the gender inequality actually declines. So the upward sloping lines are good news. When the lines are going up, it is a good news for us. The gender inequality actually declines, it says. So in some part of the world, the gender inequality declines, but still there is a gap here, and we have to close this gap definitely. And in some other part of the world, as you can imagine, the gap is huge. So this is another issue we have to solve, and we have to consider at the national level, definitely, but at the corporate level as well. So the ESG actually takes these issues into account as well. Yes, these as I said, we have been debating about climate change and what can be done on these issues. The history of discussions of climate change actually goes back to 1990s, something like that. But as you see, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change actually agreed 1992. Then the Kyoto Protocol actually signed in 1997, one of the famous one. But this doesn't necessarily mean that it has to come to an effect immediately. As far as I remember, although countries signed at 1997, it became effective at 2005. So, but still, these COP meetings are going on. And we are trying to find solutions, but actually we generally know the solutions. We generally know what we can do and what we should do. The problem here is to find a solution for all of the countries, at least a solution which is feasible for many countries. But this is not easy, as you can imagine. One of the problems that we tackle is from the economic point of view. Obviously, there are some political issues on this discussion. But from the economic point of view, the main thing is firstly the cost. The cost is now we have a carbon-intensive economy. Our transportation is carbon-intensive. Our electricity production is carbon-intensive. So heating is carbon-intensive. So transforming an economy from carbon-intensive to a sustainable one is definitely costly. So how we can finance this cost is an issue. And at the same time, some of the countries obviously they generate income from this carbon producing resources like oil, the coal, and other things. So we have to find a solution for these economies as well. So this is not easy, but at the point that we have reached, actually the climate change is forcing many countries to do something. So I think we are at a very critical stage for doing something better. And because of and as a result of these discussions, not just on the climate part, but the other dimensions of the sustainability, as you know, the UN actually announced Sustainable Development Goals. Now we have 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and Turkey actually is one of the supporters of these goals as well. And when we look at these headlines, the number one is no poverty. So this is one of the most important targets of these development goals. The zero hunger, good health and well-being, and it goes like that. And maybe we can, the climate action is at 13, as you see. The sustainable cities and communities, the partnership for the goals, these are all in our agenda to reach these development goals. So now maybe we can come to the ESG part. The ESG actually stands for environmental, social, and governance sustainability on the corporate level. So we have talked about many issues that are related with the sustainability, especially these UN Sustainable Development Goals. So these ESG actually is a reflection of these goals. Maybe we can define it like that. It's a reflection of these goals at the corporate level. So when we analyze a company from the ESG perspective, then we can actually understand how this company manage, or how this organization manage the risks and opportunities from the sustainable point of view. And when we do this from time to time for a year, maybe, if we can measure the approach of this institution to the ESG and get a number, so we can do it. So if we do this for every year, so we will have a historical data for how this company actually approach these environmental issues, social issues, and governance issues. So it is a good way of actually, maybe we can say, creating a discipline, ESG discipline for companies. And if we can do that, then we can actually separate the good companies, the companies that actually doing efforts for the better ESG performance, and we can separate these companies from the companies that are not good at ESG. So it is another reason why we are doing this, why we are actually working on these ESG issues. When we look at the historical part, the some of the companies actually trying to create a self-discipline for climate issues, for the approach to employees and customers. So why? Because if you remember, there was a sports shoes company, and in the social media, we have seen some pictures. The child labor actually was working on the company of this sports shoes factory in Southeast Asia. So this was a very big actually disturbance for this company. The company actually, when people saw the pictures of this child labor, actually there was a big campaign against this shoe company, and they lost customers, they lost money at the end. So they realized that actually customers are very sensitive to these issues, and with the power of the social media, the people actually can get together much more easily than before. So this created a self-discipline in some of the sectors, maybe. This can be in textile, this can be maybe the fast consuming goods. But just think about a steel sector, steel or iron production sector. So we don't see much those companies, what they are doing, what kind of people are actually working there. But those are the companies that are polluting more. So they don't need to create a self-discipline in that case. So at the point that we come, actually, this ESG score developments actually forcing the companies, not just the textile or food companies, but the steel companies, airline companies, and all of the companies to be more sensitive on these sustainability issues. As I explained, we have three main headlines: environmental, governance, and social, ESG headlines for these policies. But there are some other parts, subcategories of each category. For the environmental part, for example, we consider the resource use. How these companies actually use resources. It can be water, it can be oil, it can be coal, it can be iron, steel, copper. It doesn't matter, but the approach of this company to the resource use actually is a very important indicator of how this company is sensitive to sustainability issues. So at the same time, we can measure the emissions that is created by these companies. We measure the company's emissions and look at what is going on, if they are reducing the emissions through time, or maybe they are actually increasing their emissions through time. Those are all good indicators for a company. When you look at the emission performance of the Europe and Turkey, for example, in the last 20 years, the total gross domestic product, the total output production in the European Union is increasing, but their carbon emission has been declining, which means that for the per output production, their carbon emission has been declining. So what I am trying to say is that they have showed us that we can actually increase output by reducing the carbon emission as well. So this is possible. So we are actually monitoring the companies for their emission production as well. And innovation is obviously important for the for the sustainability, how we approach the innovation, and in what areas, in which areas these companies spend money doing research and development to improve the technology and reduce the carbon emission. This is also important as well. For the governance part, the management of the company is important. For example, how many people are working in the board, and what is the share of males and females in the board, and the share of if it is a family company, for example, if it's a family company, what is the share of how the power actually distributed in the board between the family members and the independent members. Those are important issues for the sustainability. And the shareholders, for example, how company approach shareholders, whether the maximum profit is important or not. Where, for example, obviously the shareholders actually seek for maximum profit, but it might not be sustainable. So we also consider these issues as well. On the social part, the workforce, the human rights, the approach of this company to community, the product responsibility, these are all included in the ESG scoring. So on the left-hand side, as you see, we have 3 dimensions: environmental, governance, and social. And these 3 dimensions, under these 3 dimensions, in the environmental and governance part, we have 3 sub-dimensions. On the social part, we have 4 sub-dimensions. And we can actually we can produce sub-dimensions as well. These are those numbers. And what we are doing when we are scoring the companies actually is that we look at the company reports. And we actually gather the information on all of these issues and produce a data set. About 400 measures. So it is a wide range of measures, I can say. And at the end, we reach a score for a company. Obviously, this score can be different from sectors to sectors. Some of the sectors, like steel sector, the cement sector, those are very energy intensive and carbon producing sectors. These companies are actually considered the rated relative to other companies in that sector as well. So definitely this steel sector is polluting a lot, but one of the company can do much better than the other companies. So the score of this company is can be high in that sector. But at the end, the creating a numerical result for an ESG score actually can be very beneficial, and we can use that score in many ways as well. So in this part of my talk, I will give you some examples how these companies that are doing good in ESG part is different from the other companies. So when we look at the financial results, the financial results of the companies that have higher ESG scores, they do much better in terms of the financials. Their profit level is higher, and they from the sustainability point of view, their balance sheets are much more healthier. And at the same time, there is a demand for the actually, let's say we have two types of companies. We have a company which is very good at the ESG level, so the we can say very sustainable company, and we have another company which is very opposite. So these companies are trying to borrow from the markets. They try to borrow the markets. So there is a demand for loans. At the other side, when you look at the Europe and the US, especially in Europe, there is a significant supply of loans that are searching for actually sustainable companies. Why? Because the savers in countries, they are saying that, okay, I am expecting lower returns, but you should actually distribute the loans to the sustainable companies and sustainable projects. So the banks are now searching for sustainable projects and sustainable companies because their customers actually they want it. So at the end of this, as an equilibrium, as you see, the green bonds, this actually blue line shows the difference between borrowing cost of a good ESG score company and borrowing cost of bad ESG score company. As you see, the good ESG score company borrows much cheaper than the bad ESG score company. So it means that if you are a company with a good ESG score, then you can borrow with a lower interest rates from the markets, and there is a demand for you as well. So it is a good sign. Why it is a good sign? Because this is an incentive for companies to switch to more sustainable way of doing business. So at one part, the governments are actually forcing companies to do business with more sustainable way. It is the stick part, but this is the carrot part. The carrot is lower borrowing cost for the companies, which is good. And I think that this trend will continue in the future. So the better companies, the sustainable companies will borrow with lower cost. And when we look at the statistics, the employee satisfaction in these companies are much better. If a company's approach to sustainability is high, the sensitivity of the company is high for the sustainability, then the employee satisfaction is much better in those companies. And when we look at the young generation, we have many young actually listeners here, so maybe we can ask them. But when we ask to the young generation, they actually say that they will be much more happier when they actually work in a more sustainable company, and the company which is sensitive to the world issues. So this is another thing that is now forcing the companies to do more sustainable business. And when we compare the good ESG score and bad ESG score companies, their approach to risk management is different as well. The good ESG score companies can manage the risks much better. These risks can be financial risks, and these risks can be the risks that can arise from earthquakes, fires, and so on. So these companies are much more actually good on risk management. So these are the some of the benefits actually of the ESG scores. So where we are, I think I have to wrap up, right? Hocam, it is almost 7, so.
Yes, sorry, I was muted, so I was talking to myself. I was muted. Maybe, you know, and if you wrap up
5
in
minutes.
like 5,
Yes.
6 minutes, that'd be
Yes,
great.
yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay. When we look at the carbon tax at the border in policies of the European Union after 2026, the companies who are polluting more actually will be they won't pay the tax, but the importer at the EU will pay a tax if they are importing a good from a polluting company, much more polluting company. So this is one of the example about how governments are forcing companies to pollute less and become more and more sustainable. Another example is the German government actually. A new law actually forcing now the companies that have more than 3,000 employees in Germany, and these companies are responsible from all the supply chain and all the issues in the supply chain as well. So if the company in Germany actually importing goods from China, and if that company in China actually using child labor, the German company is responsible as well, and from the child labor. So what I am trying to say is that the governments are actually forcing the companies to be more and more sustainable, more responsible for the environment and the people and the society. And at the same time, now the consumers and we people actually, we also want more sustainable companies and more sustainable products. When we look at the statistics, the consumer actually behavior statistics, we want more and more sustainable products, sustainable working environment as well. So these ESG issue actually will be more and more on the agenda of companies, and we will hear these 3 words much more frequently in the coming days. I think I have to finish here, and maybe we can talk a bit more, and then if there's any question, I will try to answer those questions.
Thank you very much, Hocam.